full stack developer, and we're going to be demonstrating some web apps. Does anybody build any web apps right now? Do you guys do anything? Oops. In the back door. What stack do you use, Mike? I didn't mean that as a leading question, but
non-FileMaker stuff,
Laravel.
Laravel for server heavy application.
Yeah.
And Vue.js
For the front end.
heavy front end.
So is anybody familiar with Laravel, what Laravel is, what Vue.js is? Laravel is a technology, it's a full stack technology that's basically runs over PHP, and it's designed to build web apps, right? It's semi-opinionated framework, right? Vue.js is a technology that's run in the browser that's used to connect this field to that field and pieces of data in there, right? So one of the challenges of building web apps is you need to know all the technology, right? And primarily, I'm going out on a limb, but we probably mostly do FileMaker first. Is that correct to say? We usually all do FileMaker. That's our core competency. So one of the fundamental premise of FM Betterforms is it's a web development platform, but it's designed for FileMaker developers. So that means the technology that you need to know, we try to put as absolutely much into FileMaker as possible. That means all the business logic. Of course, your database is all sitting inside of FileMaker, and the only thing that's outside of FileMaker is the UI, if you will. The schema, come on in. Right? Is the only thing that's sitting outside is the UI. All right, welcome, guys. So we're just talking about technologies and where FM Betterforms sort of sits in that spectrum, right? But one of the challenges is, you know, as a FileMaker developer, you come up with a new project, or as any developer does, somebody who, especially if you have any kind of experience, is you go and want to build something, and then if you have any technology that's kind of limiting, you almost instantly hit that wall, right? As soon as FileMaker, even Claris comes out with some new ability, the first hands go up and, well, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do all these different things? So people run into these technology walls. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to give FileMaker developers a very low entrance barrier, but we don't want to cap off the ceiling in terms of tech. So we want them to be able to develop really complex apps if they want, but you can keep it really kind of simple and low, with a low entrance barrier. So that's where FM Betterforms comes in. Our clients kind of fit into three categories. And I just want to get an idea of who's who here. Who is a developer who is an in-house developer? Anybody in-house, right? And then a consultant or a dev house. And then anybody have a software as a service, SaaS? You do? Okay, so three. So that's almost the exact ratios of our clients as well, right? Go figure, right? So we have in-house developers who are using our product, and they're basically, the goal there is, if you're a dev house that has more than one person and probably less than 20, you probably don't have a dedicated web person, right? If you're like 5 people, it's not really maybe economically feasible to have a full-time web person. If you're a dev house that has maybe 20 plus, you probably have a web person or web people, a team that develops that stuff. But the entrance barrier to build an entire app from web techs is a lot higher than it is, say, for a FileMaker developer, right? We can just whip up something really, really quick. We can grab somebody comes up, well, I need a contact app. Perfect. I'm already building it up. So Betterforms gives you that kind of lower end entrance barrier, but not having the cap on the top. Right? What I want to do is I want to go through just some of our clients. You can just go up if you don't mind. I have a number of companies, number of big dev houses that use our products, as well as a number of small companies as well. About 15% of our clientele are SaaS, software as a service. So they're actually building software and they're selling that software to other people, or renting the software, if you will, software as a service. And actually, Floristware is one of those ones in there as well. And some of these other companies you may have seen. All right, what I want to do is I want to get an idea of what type of web apps that you guys are kind of interested in. What kinds of use cases? Does anybody have any forms? So is it data acquisition, so ingesting of data? Okay. Mm-hmm. right? Anything else? Anything more complicated? Even more complicated? Sorry? Client portals. Okay, that's a huge one, right? Sorry. Right. So that's workflow, right? So you send them something, they either scan it or they write something down. Even generating the QR codes. Actually we'll demonstrate a few really cool ones here in a bit. So these are really common examples, right? Portals is the biggest thing. Virtually every business has to have a portal. I almost wonder if there's any companies that how you're surviving by not communicating to their clients. We have one customer. They have FileMaker database. They have all of these inspection forms for when they do gas inspection. And they were receiving a phone call or an email. They're going into FileMaker, grabbing the document, putting it in there, typing up all the stuff and sending it back out. And that was their workflow, you know? And then the minute they build a very simple portal, it's like such a game changer, right? So the ability to open up that to all your clients is really big. All right, let's actually look at a couple portals right now. If we could go to, let's look at, yeah, this first one here. So this is an interesting one here. And what this company does, this is actually a software as a service, but they didn't start off as a SaaS. And almost every FileMaker company doesn't start off as a SaaS if it's based on that. And it says City of Anytown because we're in their dev server. This is an app that was built by Dan Smith. I don't know if anybody knows that he's the guy who wrote the custom functions for JSON before we had JSON. That's who Dan Smith is. And he's a really I did a little bit of work for him. He's such a meticulous developer, right? He's like my hero in some ways. So anyhow, if there's such a thing, there's a bit of a crush going on here, I think, right? So I'm like my hero, right? So anyhow, so this is an app. So they basically what this is their company builds, their company software handles inspection permits or building permits. So if you want to put a skylight in or move the wall or something like that, you have to go to the city and you have to get a building permit. And that's what this app does. We can log in here, right? This is using basic login, and maybe you can zoom out a little bit because it looks like you're like really zoomed in on that. Is that just a page or is that the resolution of the monitor maybe? Something, there we go. All right, so we've logged in here, and this one's using basic authentication, but authentication is something that you don't have to take care of really too much in Betterforms. It's kind of rolled in. You can use basic auth, so that's a username and password, but you can also use OAuth as well. So we integrate with Okta, Auth0, Google right out of the box, and it's literally just pop a couple configurations in and you're good to go, right? If you've ever done those kinds of things with a from scratch app, it's quite challenging. All right, so this is an example of a business portal, and this is actually a multi-tenant application. If you want to build multi-tenant applications, they're really easy. Exceptionally hard in FileMaker because FileMaker is full stack, right? So that means the UI and the controller and the model, everything is all kind of intertwined, right? You click in a field, that field's connected to a table occurrence, it's connected to a table, it's connected to a record. I'm blocking everything, right? Whereas this is a little bit different. When you have a front end that's effectively detached, then you gives a lot more flexibility. So in this case, the user comes in and they can see 173 Apple Blossom Road, and that would be my application. It's in the state that right now is incomplete. So let's just go into that one there for a sec. This server here is located in Los Angeles, all right, just to give you some context. We have data centers located in Europe, North America, and Asia Pacific, but their FileMaker data is sitting in their own FileMaker server. So we don't host any of the data. It does proxy through our data centers, but nothing is cached or anything like that. All right, so in this particular case, they have an application down the side here, and this is kind of the data acquisition type of thing, but it's a lot more than that in this particular app, and you'll see that. So can we just scroll down just a little bit? So this right there is good. Right, it says, are you an applicant? Betterforms already has built-in conditional formatting. Can you click no? Right, and you can see the application. We're zoomed in so much. That's okay. All right, so you can see that's all conditional logic. Basically, you're building any type of conditional formatting that you want to have. You're very flexible to do that. Just go up a little bit. Sorry, down, I guess it is. Betterforms supports things like modals, card windows, what we consider a card window in FileMaker. In Betterforms, it's the same thing. It's just another layout inside a modal. And that, let's go into the account info. So here's a modal on top of something else. This is, if you're building this in a traditional app, you're probably using some kind of framework and things like that. It's already built in there. And you can exit out of that. So what happens is somebody goes and fills in all the information. I have a garage. And in this particular case, go down just a bit more. All of these value lists, if you will, this is an interesting app because it has a single front end that connects to 30 different FileMaker databases. They didn't want to make their back ends, because this is an existing company, they've been running for 20 years. They didn't want to make a unified back end or a multi-tenant back end. So what they did is they have a single front end in Betterforms, and it routes the traffic to the appropriate database based on the subdomain. So that's what's happening here. So all of these things like construction type and occupancy group and all of this stuff, that's all coming from FileMaker. Right? And let's go over to projects, actually, if you could. Right, so yeah, thank you. So this is an example of a very different UI. You're not opinionated in terms of user interface. It doesn't have to look like this and has to look like that. We're going to show you another app that looks 100% identical or different. And in this case, they have some tags and things like that. The UX designer has kind of added some information. I can see the first one is awaiting payment. Let's go into Walnut there. And from here, right away, as soon as you load it up, it actually goes down to the pay invoice, and then there's a payment portal. You can support virtually anything. We have probably examples for about 6 or 8 different payment gateways, but as long as your payment company has some type of JavaScript widget, it's really, really easy to implement. So you're not bound by any opinion there as well. Right, so that's kind of the gist of this particular application. Does anybody have any questions about that so far? All right. I want to show you another one, and this one actually, I'm going to pass it over to Andrew, and he's going to demonstrate. And Andrew, this is his first FileMaker event. I don't know if you noticed, he's younger than us. He noticed that we're older than him. Right? He didn't say anything like bad, but he just made that observation, very diplomatically. So I'll let you demonstrate maybe Green Rock, which is another application.
All right. Thank you, Charles. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew. I'm a lead developer at Betterforms. I've been working with Charles for about 2 years now, and over the last 2 years, we've built some really cool web apps, and I'd like to share some of that with you guys today. This app is called Green Rock, and let me zoom out here. Some background. Green Rock is an energy management company, and we've built a multi-tenant solution for them for building managers and auditors to see the various projects and properties and all the data associated with those properties as well. On the left here, you'll see that there are the properties, and you can kind of switch between them freely and see all the information at a glance. You'll see other tabs such as the projects, meter readings, just to name a few. And one of the main features we've built for Green Rock is optimization. You'll see, let's say I go to ALOF New Orleans and open up these meters. There's a ton of data coming in here. And what I want to show you is how we kind of take that data, we store it and optimize it so we can access that data in the future. I'll just show you as I scroll down here, there's a ton of meters. Let me scroll down here. And the list goes on forever. But you'll notice here, as I switch to another meter, for example, fetching all that data as well, and then switch back, it almost loads instantaneously. So we only have to fetch that data once, store it on the front end, and then we can access that data moving forward. This app was built in just under 100 development hours, so pretty quick and relative to other maybe web apps.
Yeah, can I just jump in there?
Sure.
Dev house, how big is a 100-hour project? What is this? I'm looking for the right word. That's not a swear word. It's very small, 100-hour project. That's the actual time that was spent on the front end.
Yep, but this is just one example of a web app that we created in the platform. We thought it was pretty cool and want to share that with you guys today. So thank you.
Any questions about that app at all? You did a good job.
Um,
Does the client have any control over
yes. So the way we cache the data is we call it the app model, which is very similar to global variables in
That'd be the equivalent of state.
right.
So it's just basically the data is downloaded. That's a great question. In this particular case, like the data that they're fetching is meter readings and hydro gas. So that's done once a day. And then the energy auditor goes in here maybe once a week. So it doesn't really matter. As soon as it's just done once. Now we could easily just literally a checkbox and you could save that data in local storage with Betterforms. You can just turn that on really instantly and it synchronizes with any data that you fetched. And you can save it so the next time you open up the app, the data's right there. And then in the background, it can fetch the data as well. But it's not necessary. It's like, where do you optimize in the system? Do you optimize right away or later? Like the engineer in me says, optimize later, but be aware of it right now.
with the actual FileMaker backend?
So we do consulting. This was Naviq?
Yes.
Naviq, the company who built this, they have 3 developers. They've built a number of other apps as well. And this one, they had a bit of a rush, so they contacted us and said, "Hey, can you build the front end? We'll co-develop with you." So Andrew worked with Chris Conger, the developer on the other side, and basically he says, "Okay, here's the data I have. Here's the connections the data that we need from your side, and so on." So I'm not sure the back end what that took. I know they rebuilt it from scratch, but I don't know how many hours that one was. This is just the front end and the code that powers the front end. Any other questions before?
Also,
Yeah.
side by side, FileMaker, native FileMaker.
I believe they have a native FileMaker for the people who are in the office. Yeah. And most of our clients have FileMaker front ends that, or FileMaker client interfaces just for, the administrative side of things and their existing infrastructure. Betterforms is not designed to replace FileMaker by any means. It's not taking away FileMaker clients. A lot of people ask us, well, how does FileMaker think about it? And in fact, it's the opposite, because we've now enabled all of you FileMaker developers to be able to build web apps that are on par. Like, I think it's a pretty decent looking, it's a professionally designed web app. Our UX designer actually designed this one. And he did that in 20 hours or something like that. And, this is something that you can show to somebody and say, "Hey, this is our product, and it doesn't look janky. It doesn't have opinions. It's responsive and so on."
Direct.
Yeah. So that's a good question. Why don't we start by hitting maybe the back button? And how about we refresh? so these are some of the differences. The biggest things is when it's a real web application, right? So that means things are bookmarkable if you, as a developer, choose, right? You can access any part of the app. You can make parts unlocked, parts locked. It's not a. You can resize the screen. Yeah, the master one is a really good one because they put a lot of work into the responsiveness. Go to the first one and go in. Yeah, stay on this. Go to the application form for a second and just go into the whatever it was there. Yeah, and then resize the screen here. So what they've done, actually, no, you can just drag the browser. You don't have that thing. It's all right, right? So what they've done is they've done something kind of neat here. Is responsiveness you have to be thinking about. There's a lot of work that goes into it. It doesn't just come out of the box. You can't just take anything and make it responsive. How does it work? Go back a little wider again, if you don't mind, Andrew. So you have this side navigation here, right? And as you scroll, it kind of gives you some indication. What do you do with that when the screen shrinks down? Right? It disappears and it actually goes into a multi-select up here. And then as you scroll, it actually changes. So they've handled that in a really neat way. Right? And then go a little smaller again. And then the side navigation that's over here. So now you have an application that runs beautifully on your tablet, on your desktop, and of course on your phone.
Something that's been done by the developers.
Yes, that's stored. And so we'll talk about the editor in Betterforms in a bit, but basically all of the editing of the page is done in an application that's on the web, right? And all your business logic sits in FileMaker. So there's nothing that says in here, create a record. You're actually scripting, creating that record in FileMaker. Yeah, business logic falls into, you could say, two areas, right? There's UI based stuff and there's backend based stuff. Backend is like, can I create what happens when I save something? Does it fire off an email? Does it create line items and things like that? Validation type logic can sit in the front end, and that happens in the front end. But not all validation sits in the front end. For example, maybe I'm registering for something and I put my email in and I've already registered before. So that requires a database call, right? So you basically run a script and you say, this is the email, it's Charles, and then it returns, yes, you can do this, or maybe I can go somewhere else, I can do something else. So yeah, so Betterforms has a built-in language called action scripts, and they're basically like the equivalent of FileMaker script steps. There's things like path, which is like go-to layout. You can actually run JavaScript if you wanted to. You can log the person in, log the person out. There's about maybe 30, 35 different steps. And those can be run in the front end to do some rudimentary workflows, but typically the database generates those as well. So in that case, it's not that we're catching it in the front, it's the database is actually, FileMaker has control. FileMaker is saying to the web browser, go to this page, this person's not allowed to do this. Or web browser, show this modal, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't, yeah, the FileMaker, the auth or the user table in Betterforms is not a FileMaker user table, and you don't want it to be, right? You want to keep that more or less separate. So it sits in a table, and the table has a hashed, one-way hash of your password. And on the front end, you basically specify, I want this page to be protected by authentication and this page to be open. Because many apps, there's maybe 10% of the pages are unlocked, like the login page, the splash page, maybe the app sends out a request for something. And for example, that inspection permit might send out the backend might send out an SMS, and the person clicks on the SMS, and it's like they're inside the app. So that would probably be unlocked, but you'd have maybe a query parameter or something. Yes, you're using a single account for the front end, correct, right? So what happens is when a call, and the calls in Betterforms are called hooks, when they go to FileMaker, it passes along a bunch of metadata, right? That metadata is injected by the server, not by the client, because that would be hackable, right? And then the server injects things like, this is who the authenticated user is based on a JWT, a token. And there's a bunch of other things, like if you ever wanted to, your IP address, the data center that's coming through, a whole bunch of stuff like that. The domain comes through, and you can pick out all of that. Those are all instantiated in global variables in FileMaker. So basically, as my script runs, I have all my data available. And I have the exact model, the data that's underneath the hood here, I have that available to me in FileMaker. So I just have to mutate that data, and then when that script is finished, the data comes to the front end. So it's already there. Since it's all based on, it's all reactive in the front, so that means as soon as I change a piece of data, everything in there changes. Madeleina's she works in our operations, and she's bringing in some goodies for us, so that's cool. Right, I want to show you another app, actually, and it's a demo app that we whipped up. And yeah, that's all good. There we go. So this is a demo app. Give it a try. I want to show you some other cool things here. And don't worry, it's not going to like hack your phone or nothing, I promise. Right? But basically, This app is a mobile app. Well, it's mobile first type of app. Is built with the intention of it being a mobile app. And we wanted to build something just for this show that is kind of indicative of a really common use case, like in some type of inspection. Right? And this is the first time that we've had more than 2 users, so hopefully it's okay. Yeah, we tested it out, sure, right? This is our test. We're testing in production in traditional FileMaker fashion, right? So basically what this app is, this is going to pull up on your phone. Now, what you can do is this is installable. So if you're on an iPhone, you have the little square box with the arrow up, the share button. And if you click share and then you scroll down to add to home screen and give that a try, what it'll do is it will actually download the app or download all the web assets, and you'll end up with you can't really see it on here, but you'll end up with an icon that looks like our logo. Right? Now, why would you want to do this is now you have effectively an installed app on your phone. This app is not designed to be offline, but you can build apps that are fully offline, but they're web apps. This is the takeaway here. So that means you're not jumping through the app store. You're not going through that. You can have just casual people jump in and suddenly they have a full application without them going through all the hoops. Did that work okay? Any problems with that? Right, so a couple things on this app. You can go into the task section. I'm going to go into the feed. It's got like we've created a little social feed. And what we did is Betterforms has built-in messaging. That means messaging is the ability for the back end to talk to the front end. And that's generally something that you'd have to code out quite a bit, do a lot of hoop jumping in a regular app. But the idea of messaging is the back end now, as people click likes and such. And you can actually try this. If you go to one of the, let's see, I'm going to go to the top of the social feed. And somebody says, bonjour from France. Oh, Fabrice. And you can go through there and basically create different likes, and you will see those like numbers automatically increase. So what's happening behind the scenes is the back end can send information to the front end and keep everything in line. Now, most apps, and the reality is somebody took a back of a chair here. That's cool. Sort of. It's an empty chair, so we're going to figure out who it is now. Reconstruction, right? So most of the time, you don't really need to have your data live, but there are a number of real-world use cases where you do want data really, really live. Like, for example, ticket administration. If I'm scanning tickets at a door, I want to make sure that data goes to the back end instantly and maybe updates all the other devices right away as well. So that means if I have a front door and a back door in an auditorium and both people are scanning tickets, I want to make sure the other person gets the person scanned at the other door. They don't have to like refresh the app or stuff. So those are some sort of more real world use cases. And we also put a little leaderboard. Andrew programmed this up in here. And I think I'm still in the lead with 10 likes. Maybe we can change that to somebody else. Right? But this example basically demonstrates a number of different things. We're pulling digital assets from FileMaker. We're sending data up through, when you take a picture, it's actually going into Amazon S3. Really, really easy integration. And so that data is getting stored in a bucket there. We didn't build, so don't take anything, we didn't build a delete on here. So don't, do something, right? Take a picture of something. Because you have to come talk to Andrew and I'll have to go. I said to Andrew, I said, somebody's going to do it. Someone's going to do it. So you better build a delete. It's okay. We'll try to do it. Right. But this is a real kind of a realistic kind of an app. It's very simple. This took us we kind of didn't go that fast. Maybe what are we at? 48 hours, I think, right now, something like that. And most of it was like, what should we put as the questions? We weren't sure. That was most of the time that we spent, right? We tried to figure out this. But all of this data is actually coming from FileMaker. So actually, can you pull up the FileMaker database? Yep. And we can get an idea how this thing works. So here's the database here. We don't bother we do a lot of dog fooding. We sort of practice what we preach kind of thing. So we don't build a lot of web interface, or sorry, front ends in FileMaker, other than just utility access to the tables. And can you go into the graph? Right. So this is and then you can zoom out with the little, yeah. Oh, there you go. So this is the relationship graph. It's very simple. Right? But the funny thing is, the interesting thing is, as the apps grow bigger, when you separate the front end, if you don't, and this isn't for everybody, but if you are building an app and you don't need FileMaker client, you're just using FileMaker as a database and as a scripting language. And if you ever build an app like that, honestly, it's a game changer. You're going to rethink about FileMaker in a very, very different way, because we think of FileMaker in this extra dimension, and suddenly we're getting rid of that UI. So it's a very, very different experience. But this is a really, really typical app, and the reason we don't need all these table occurrences is because the front end can grab data from anywhere, right? It can assimilate data from multiple tables that aren't even connected. So we have a bunch of tables up on the right. I don't know what they are, but they do something. Yeah, it was event log. That's one for my talk on syncing later on. Generic data store. Can we go into that one? Actually, this one's an interesting one. So I don't know if you do this as a technique, but this is just a key value pair file. And you can see the text in here. And this text, if you go to the home screen of the app, is the text that shows up in the app. So if I go to home and then I go to see how this app works under the hood, that's that same data right there. So we're just, in this case, it's all coming all the way from FileMaker, and we're just rendering it. It's in so that's a great question. So this is Markdown language. You guys all familiar with Markdown? It's like a simplified kind of way of doing rich text without doing the rich text. So we're putting the Markdown in here. We wanted something that you can kind of format and look kind of nice, but I don't want to have to format things. So what we did is in the Betterforms side, we have a library called marked, and all we do is we say this is the data, and then we basically wrap it in that library. So it's like a little bit of an extra command there. I think, can you do me a favor? I think we actually are grabbing the styles from here as well, but maybe not from this one, actually. We might not be. But in some of the other areas where the questions are, we're actually going. So can you go to the tasks? Yeah. So because Betterforms is a dynamic interface, that means the interface is generated from data. Normally, you can just generate something and it's perfect. But there's some use cases like our app. Actually, go back to the app for a second, into the tasks here. So let's say I wanted to use this next week at a totally different function. My questions here: enter a nickname, say hello in your language, take a photo of a developer. Those tasks would change quite a bit, quite significantly. Right? So they would change, and they might not just be an input field. It might be something totally different. Like for one, the last one's a photo. The second one, say hello in your language. Can you go into that one for a quick second? That one actually has two fields, right? And go back again, and then go into nickname, say. That one has just one field. So if you had to code this, you'd have to think about, okay, what are all the options? And also, what are all the options I'm going to think about in the future? And I'd have to maybe make some kind of conditional thing, right? So what we did here is we did something that's kind of cool. You can go back over to the app now if you don't mind. Thanks. This is the task, and this first task is it's kind of hard to see because this is a pretty ugly layout. Somebody in the audience is saying, "Oh, it's not too bad." I got one of those. I'm thinking it's not that bad actually. So there's a few fields, and you can kind of map which fields are what. But most important here, there's one that says is public, one that says is active, so we could turn that on and off. Right, it's a Boolean. And the one just category type there, it says input. So we have a few hard-coded. We wanted to share this app later on as an example. So we have a few hard-coded things there, in input and photo. But we also added one called custom, because we said, well, what about the ones that we don't know about? Right? We want to create this new thing. So the interesting thing is the custom one. It says, install this app into your home phone. Don't worry, blah, blah, blah. There's some text in there that shows up. And then over on the right-hand side, what do we got in there? If we can see it a little bit. right? So in the right-hand side, there is a checkbox. And the checkbox actually even has some validation. So this is actually some schema. This is actually the metadata, if you will, of the user interface. So now you could grab this from a file if you wanted to, but in this particular case, it's taking that and it says, oh, don't render my default stuff. Let me render this. And this says it's a checkbox. Thank you. Go to the input one, the one with the 2 people. So this is 2 fields. So if we wanted to change that to 3 fields, can you do me, yeah, you're gonna have to do some surgery in here and a check back. So I'm trying to tell him how to code. Like, he's really smart, right? So it's like, okay, I'm just trying to feel good myself, right? And not feel too irrelevant. And then, yeah, you're gonna have to click out there. Because you gotta commit the record, son. So, okay, now let's go to, if you go to the app, he just duplicated one of the fields. And I forget, where are you picking those up? Are we doing it on the, it's not, yeah. So if you go to the home button, it's actually in the background uploading that data. And then which one was this? This was the say hello in your language. And now we got 3 fields, right? So the takeaway here is that we just built totally dynamic interface, right? Mostly hard-coded in Betterforms, but we passed off even more dynamic stuff into FileMaker, right? To do that easy, from building that from scratch, you're gonna have to build all the framework up there. You can appreciate that as a web developer, right?
First I tried refresh, load,
Yes?
and it didn't home.
Yeah. In this particular case, this doesn't fetch. We didn't bother pushing this live information out. So it doesn't fetch, it only does it on the home button. We figured, okay, there's no sense in, it just grabs the stuff. That's probably gonna be good enough. We do some things. I think the social feed, I don't think it pushes this up, but the likes get pushed out dynamically. And I think the leaderboard will automatically update as well. But it's not, we didn't bother making everything live. But that's the idea. Any questions about any of that stuff? I'm trying not to get too into weeds of the technicals. And we have, okay, you handed those out. We got a lot of water bottles. And I'm trying not to take it personally, but nobody was scanning our app. We're not game designers, right? We wanted to gamify this app. This is a true story. We wanted to gamify the app and make it kind of somehow fun that we could also demonstrate like a whole bunch of these different kinds of things. But we don't know what we're doing in terms of game designers. We're web developers and FileMaker developers. So back to the drawing board. So we're more or less, you won a water bottle by coming, but it was supposed to be a little challenge, right? If you book a demo, we actually have some T-shirts as well. They look, I don't have any of them, but they're pretty cool, right? I want to go back, if you can go back to the website here, I just want to tell you a bit more about Betterforms really quick. And we'll go over to team, if you could. So we have a team of about 14. There's a really big picture, so probably should make those smaller, but it's okay, right? I was a few years younger there, I'm not gonna lie. This is before I started having a big team, right? This is right, and you can scroll down there, and so basically we have our own in-house UX designer and some other developers, and Alex in testing, and there's Andrew over there, and so on. So this is our team, right? We have a lot of exposure to our team. So if you're in our community in terms of support, you can jump to support there. If you're in terms of support, you're gonna get to know everybody pretty much on our team because they all answer the support questions. I know as a developer myself what it's like to have to post a support ticket. The experience is terrible in general, right? You go, okay, I'm running into a problem. You hate to want to hit the support button. And then so you waste an hour, 2 hours, and then you say, okay, I'm gonna have to contact support. So then you fill out the support thing and it asks you a whole bunch of information that's irrelevant. And you write a real detailed description of the problem. And then 2 hours later, you get an email back, great, they've answered it. And it says, thank you, we've received your support ticket, we'll contact you, right? So I wanted to not do that. So we have live support, meaning there's somebody 18 hours of the day pretty much watching our Slack, and we try to jump and answer the questions in real time. right? That's one of our goals. So Andrew answers a ton of questions. So if you've some of the people who use our product already, you know that already. You already know them. And myself, I answer a huge ton as well. In addition to that, we do a lot of onboarding. We do one-on-one onboarding, so you're not going to be stranded. You can book as much sessions as you want. I, most of the time, take almost all the onboarding myself. So we'll work together. We'll look at the app and say, hey, what is it you want to build? And let me show you some best practices. Let me show you some examples, and we'll make sure we get your app into production. It's really, really important to us. We have a workshop. So every Thursday, we have some workshops. So just basically, it's a drop-in. It's a open session. Bring whatever you want to do, and we'll just work on it and answer any questions as well. For EngageU here, we have some promotions. If you could go to, yeah, we can go to there. Actually, let's go to pricing first, and then we'll, yeah, if you don't mind. So we have a few different options in terms of plans. Our citizen developer is basically, and our pro developer have virtually the same features. The only difference is it's the amount of stuff that you can build. We don't have a limit on users. We don't have a limit on traffic. Our network is fully scalable. It's auto-healing. But you can have 20 pages with citizen developer. It works out to be about $50 a month, $5.99 per year. We have a promotion on what I'll tell you about there. And then we have our pro developer. You can build as much stuff as you want, with the exception of if you do build a vertical, you can only build one of those. And that's not usually a problem, because people who have verticals don't build like all kinds of other stuff. They focus on their software as a service, right? And can you go, yeah, you can go to promos now. So here's the way the promos work. And there's links to this in the app as well. And you just have to scroll to the bottom of that page. But the promo is $4.99, so it's $100 off. And this is quite significant, is the citizen developer. It's almost half price. I think it's a 60 or 40% off or something like that. And that is going to be on. There's a code for that, and there's it expires in about a week. No, it's not Canadian dollars. We're Canadian, but it's not Canadian dollars. It's those guys down there below us. All right, yeah. I wish it was, but I think it's pretty reasonable, because the value that you get, I guarantee it. Guarantee you're gonna get tons of value out of Betterforms as a platform. So that's our product. Any questions? Yes. Yeah, exactly. So let's see how well you've been paying attention. What's the difference between us and Clara Studio? Can you go back to, pardon, what was that? I missed it. Well, that's Clara Studio is live too. It serves a different purpose, right? FileMakers, and I still really kind of believe this, and I think their main goal is business to business, in the sense of, first of all, FileMaker is really, really geared to people who are on the payroll, right? That's where the product works best. That, he's working in the front, she's working in the back, he's over there and shipping, and FileMaker talks to all of these people who work for me. The minute somebody's not working for you, the expectation is way higher, right? When somebody's on the payroll, you can give them that app that I showed you, the ugly interface, and we all have clients that have this, or we have them ourselves, and we just use it and that's fine. But there's no way you can surface that to the public. So you have to have something that's polished, right? So the first thing is we have high fidelity. This page here, this actual whole page is Betterforms app, right? These promotions, these are actually all dynamic data, right? You can actually, are you in the, yeah, you can't, so it's the DevTools turned off, you can see it. But these are all dynamic data, even the codes, everything like that. We just made it because we know that we change promos from time to time, so it's like I didn't want to have to do something. The only disadvantage here is, because Betterforms is dynamically rendered, it uses JavaScript to render the front end as the page loads. That means you don't have any server-side optimization, or sorry, search engine optimization, because we don't have any server-side generation of the pages, right? That's something we're looking at and we'll do, but we haven't had a big request for it, because most people aren't building stuff that they need to index on a search engine. They're building portals, right? And portals, you really want your stuff indexed. So that's a big difference. Fidelity is a big difference. This card is something you can do in really, really easy in Betterforms. In fact, we have some AI stuff that you can literally just say, make a card, and it does that. I got it on my lab. Actually, you can go into, if you want to go into, yeah. And you can do, if you add an HTML block in there. Check this out. This is a new feature. We just released this. Okay, Andrew's just adding an HTML block, and then he's going to go into the HTML editor here. Okay, so on the left-hand side, this is Betterforms the editor. This is stuff that you can't do as well, right? So it says this is HTML. Can you go into the assistant there on the bottom? We just pushed this out, and this is in very early beta. Can you say add some padding and make the background blue with rounded corners? Yeah. Yeah. So basically what's happening is this went out to FileMaker, and FileMaker, that's freaking cool, right? Come on, that's really cool. Okay, but hold on. Okay. Right. Change the text to white. Yeah. And you can do things like that. You don't really need to know HTML, but I've changed the text to white. So we have so this is using OpenAI, and we've got some prompting in there. And we go back to FileMaker, Betterforms. This app, this editor, by the way, our actual product is built in Betterforms as well. But this editor is going back to FileMaker, and it's saying, and that FileMaker is doing a call to OpenAI, grabbing some information, and it actually passes a bunch of information in. If you go over to the dev tools, or sorry, the dev data model, and say go into the editor. Yeah, look, you can make an empty key there, invoice or something like that. Let's try this one. This one's a little bit. Now, normally this data would come from FileMaker, okay? But when I'm developing, I need to have some sample data. You know, in FileMaker, we have that show sample data button, and we turn it on, and we kind of, look at that stuff. Go into the assistant here. Oh, no, from that tab, yeah. And say, create a sample invoice with line items. This one takes a little longer because it's, right? This wasn't doable 3 weeks ago. We actually wrote this a year ago, but OpenAI wasn't fast enough. Like, you have to do live streaming and things like that, and we didn't do that. Yeah, and there's something, yeah, I just hit enter, and then you can format it there. Yeah, there it is. So there's our invoice, okay? Yeah. Oh, okay, hold on. Seatbelts on, okay? Go to HTML now, right? And say, create a pretty invoice with colors. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, you can spell it like that. That's how we spell it. It's good. Yeah, go for it. Let's see. Okay, this one takes a little bit longer, okay? So we're going to have some live updates and things like that, but we're still, it's like somebody said earlier on today, I think it was in the presentation, AI is changing so fast. It's like just coming up with stuff that's relevant, right? One of the neat things with Betterforms is we're very, very well positioned to incorporate AI stuff into it. This literally, to put this chat box in, it was maybe 2 or 3 hours of work. The designer said, okay, I think it should kind of go here. And then we had to write a little bit of code. There's maybe 20 lines, 30 lines in FileMaker in the back end. But it will come back. And yeah, and just drag the middle slider out just so we can kind of see the whole thing there. And there's our invoice, right? That could have came from FileMaker just the same. So I think that's cool, and that's worth, Anyway, I get giddy at this stuff. But it's funny how the header is like in a dark thing. So you can go in and you can say stuff. You can, won't get too in the weeds here, but you can basically say, make the numbers right align, turn the prices and use numeral.js formatting library to format the numbers, and you can just keep dialing it in like that, and you have an interface. So it's pretty cool that way, and that's kind of the direction that we're moving in with this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Oh, great question. Can you go back out a notch? So I didn't mention this, but yeah, we'll go and go up to Demo Corp there. Yeah. So this isn't actually technically is a bug. You guys can. All right. Okay. Yeah, and so So we have these environments. Environment is like a space that you do your development. And this is a development environment. And if you scroll down, there's a production environment down here. Betterforms has full version control. So that means go up to the environment and just go onto the rollback of the, yeah, right there, just for a second. We won't actually roll back. But it's gathering all the versions, and you can see the dates that I did all these deployments. There's some from like last September and so on. And I'm just curious when the oldest one is, right? So I can go all the way back to 2 years ago when I first deployed version 1. I click it, it's going to restore, and I have version 1 of my app, and I can jump back and forth. We have that on the site level. We have it on the pages, and then if you can go into edit environment. And then just going over into the one thing that you asked about is domains. Basically, by default, you get a something.fm Betterforms domain, but if you click add a new domain and then use your own domain, you can bring your own domain and just add that in there as well. You do have to do a bit of configuring with your registrar. We take care of the certificates and everything there. So there's nothing else to do other than that. Right? If you want to learn some more information, come see Andrew or myself after we're done here. If you book a demo with us, I'll build out something for your business use case right in the call, and I'll give you a t-shirt too. So bonus. Thanks, guys.